Okay, let's see what we've got here today then. It's a grass trimmer, Makita grass trimmer, and the model number is DUR193. I have had quite a few of these in the workshop and they all seem to have the same problem, and that is that the head stops spinning. Basically the motor stops working, it goes dead, or it makes a kind of squeaking noise but nothing happens. And they all seem like they have the same problem, and that is grass builds up under the head here and starts to press up on the bearings, and so the head can't turn. And I can already feel that it does turn, but it's not easy. There's some resistance here. So we're going to open it up and see what we find. First things first, take off this metal here, then take off the protector. Should be some screws under here somewhere. Where are they? Oh. No. Quite a lot of grass. Is there a screw on this one? Oh, there is no screw on this one actually, it just slides off. That's nice. It was the old model that had screws. Okay. And then we're just going to open up the shell. There we go. As you can see, there's quite a lot of grass in here. And I think a big part of the problem is that the motor is down here at the bottom of the trimmer, close to the grass, and so all of the grass that gets in goes into the motor. You know, there's these little holes here for the motor to breathe, and grass and damp can get in there. But the motor is actually fine on this one. If we can try and spin it up now. So you can see there, no problem with the motor. But I'm going to take the motor out and pull this half of the shell off as well. Just put this bit to one side. Okay, and on this model, you can't change the head. You can't change this bit. So if we pull this out, you can see what the problem is. If you look here, here, in between the bearing and the head that contains the cutting thread, there's all this build-up of grass. And showing the light on there, you can see it a bit better. And what happens is that grass gets packed in between the head and the bearing, and it gets really hot as it spins, and you can see it gets hot because it goes all shiny, and even the plastic starts to melt around the bearing. So what are we going to do about that? First thing we can do is try to clean out all the grass here. Okay, now I've pulled out as much grass as I can from in here. If you're lucky, or you catch it early, you probably can get all the grass out. But this one's been going on so long that the grass has really forced itself in between the bearing and the head. So I am going to have to take this apart. But you guys at home, if you had the same problem and you catch it early, you might get away with just pulling the grass out. But I can have a good feel of the bearing. Like when I try and spin the bearing here on the shaft, I can feel that it's really hard to turn. So the problem is, at least in this case, not solved just from pulling the grass out. If we look at the shell here as well, you can see how it's built up grass and it's melted a bit on there. I'm going to take a knife and just try and get some of that off. Okay, so now we've taken the thread spool out. Be careful not to lose this spring. And you can see there's a little clip in there, and then I think it's pressed on. The shaft is pressed into the head. And that's part of the problem with these, is you can't remove the head. On many of them, you screw the head on, and so you can periodically screw off the head, clear out the grass and screw it back on again. But because this is pressed together, you really have to press it apart to clean it, and that's not something normally people do at home. Quite hard to take this off without damaging it, actually, so I'm going to have to squeeze it back together before I put it back on. Something like this. Not that it really does a lot, because it's, like I said, it's actually pressed onto the shaft. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to try pulling the bearing and the plastic off first. The plastic cog off first. I've got a nice little bearing puller here. But it's a bit thick. The shaft's a bit thick to go in the middle, so we can use something like this. I'm just going to take a socket here with an Allen key. And that Allen key is smaller than the diameter of the shaft. So it's going to press only on the shaft, basically. Give this a go. Shouldn't be pressed on too hard. There we go, bearing off. Now this is a bit big for this bearing puller, but I've got another bearing puller here. I wonder if that'll work. A bit of a bigger one. There we go, that came off pretty easily. Is it the same on both sides? Yes, so you don't need to worry about that. Okay, you can see just over the top of the bearing there is a flange on the shaft, and that means that you can't pull the bearing out this way. You have to take the head off and pull the bearing off the other way. So you might be thinking, well, why did I bother to take the bearing and the plastic cog off then? And the reason I did that is so that I can use a socket to sit here on the head. If I try and support the head on the outside, it's just plastic and it's just going to flex. So I want to support it as close as I can to the center, so that it's not going to flex when I knock out the center shaft. So let's give this a go. Normally I would use a press to do this, but I guess most people don't have a press at home, so we'll give it a go with a hammer and a what do you call those things? I don't know. We can just use this socket extension. Okay, now we're as far down as we can go with the socket extension. So we need to use one of those Allen key sockets that has a smaller diameter than the hole. So this one should work. And there we go. And you can see the bearing came out inside the socket, and the grass that I couldn't get out before is on the top. That was the grass. So if we have a look at this bearing, you can see this bearing is totally destroyed, because if you check this side out, you can see that the case here is flat. And if we look on the other side, you can see that the case has been pushed in a bit by the grass. So let's see how it spins. I mean, it still spins okay, but I know that it's damaged. You can feel it a little bit. You can't hear it too much, but when it spins faster, then those small problems will become even worse. So we're gonna replace it. Here we go then, new bearing, old bearing, throw that one away. So I want to push this onto the shaft. Okay, when you're putting on bearings, it's important that you don't push on the case in the middle. You need to push only on the inner race when you're putting it on a shaft like this. So I'm just going to use a socket. That's kind of the right size. That was a 9mm. This is an 8mm. I'd say that 8mm is pretty good. I'm doing this on a wooden surface. I wouldn't normally do that. I'd normally put it on a piece of metal and do it. You can see the bearing's pushed all the way on. Again, I wouldn't normally do this. I'd normally use the press, but I'm trying to show that you can actually fix this at home. I didn't clean all the grass off the head. Okay, now I did get a bit of metal. Get in there slowly. Okay, looks like it's pressed all the way in. And then you should be able to see the track where that little clip sat in. And there is that track there, and it's pushed right up against the bearing, so that's fine. This little one. Yep, that's back in there, sitting nicely in the track it was supposed to be in. Okay, now we want to press on the plastic cog. Again, I would normally use a press for all this, but we're doing it home style, so. Yep, press back on, bearing. I'm going to do the bearing from the other side now because I want it to be flat on there. I don't really want to risk damaging this bearing because it's so small. The chance of me getting the socket to sit right on the race is quite slim. So this time we'll flip it over like that. Make sure it's flat, and we use our trusty extension again. Oh, that went on really well. Okay. Yeah, it's looking good now. Start putting it back in the shell. When you work on the shell, make sure you don't lose these little rubber I don't know what they are. They're like maybe vibration dampeners, or they keep the adjuster in place. You can see there's been quite a lot of grease on here, so we'll put some more grease on there. Oh, there should be one more screw around here somewhere. Is it 1 or 2 screws I'm missing? Where did they go? Oh, it was just one. Okay, let's see if it spins. Yep, seems good. Now we can put the head back, the head back together. Kind of awkward to work on this. You know, the more expensive trimmers, they have 2 holes for the thread to come out of. Why doesn't that want to go back in there? I've got the spring still there. Try again. If you lose that spring, if you don't have the spring in place, then the cable just comes, the thread just comes out and out and out and out and out. That is a bit long. So if you find that's your problem, then you've lost that spring. Oh, wrong way. And this really does just click on there with no screw to hold it on. Oh, that's it. Job done.